interesting thing about this ADHD thing is because you're coming from low baseline dopamine levels, all the addictive stuff that can give you quick dopamine, sugar, porn, social media, alcohol, vaping, these things create even bigger highs than the average person. So when you drink a drink of alcohol, when you scroll on your phone, you're getting a bigger elevation of pleasure in your brain, which is why it's so difficult to navigate this modern world as an ADHD brain. The alternative side of that to look at is if you do something that is of value to you, so you successfully complete a project and you find like a specific aspect of your work that you really like doing, or you get really into an artistic project like digital art, or you start getting good at a musical instrument, just like you got these big spikes of the quick behaviors, you also get bigger spikes than the average brain on these challenging behaviors. Your dopamine is going to go through a bigger climb effectively. And it means that those with ADHD, if they find something to channel the dopamine into, are actually going to experience greater levels of performance. And I imagine for most of the time, ADHD actually was the high-performing human individuals within our world. But then trying to fit into school in our modern society has become really, really challenging because it's not necessarily how the ADHD brain works. Because ADHD likes hyper-focus on one thing, not
This is Dr. Russell Barkley. I think I've got to watch his videos on YouTube. He's quite good.
If you're an intelligent child, you can coast. You can coast through primary school easily. You don't need to do anything, it's natural. Often children in primary school in the early stages of secondary school with ADHD don't do any preparation. They don't study. They don't do any homework. They don't do any coursework. They turn up for exams and they're bright and they do well. It tends to start to bite, however, at secondary school. I see so many people who got through primary school okay, went to secondary school and they needed to hand in coursework, they needed to do homework, they just didn't do it. What they often rely upon is the effect of stress with an impending deadline to generate focus. What happens is that your adrenal glands respond to the fear of an impending exam. They start to produce cortisol and adrenaline, which drives you into an all-night state of hyperfocus. So many people I see day to day got through exams on basically an all-nighter. They were unable to work consistently towards a goal. And this is okay at a certain level, but it starts to get more and more difficult as you get older. Because basically what is happening is you're driving yourself into a stressed state to provoke focus. And you can't do A-levels very easily on that sort of stress. You certainly can't do exams or dissertations at university on a night's. If you're an intelligent child, you can coast. You can coast through primary school.
There's an ADHD hack that I rarely hear anybody talk about. Did you know that chewing gum might actually help with ADHD? It is true. Let's talk about what the research says and how a little chewing could make a big difference for focus and concentration. Studies have shown that chewing gum can increase blood flow to the brain, which can improve focus, memory, and even alertness. This can be a game changer for people with ADHD who struggle to stay on task. Researchers have found that when people with ADHD chew gum during tasks, they tend to complete them faster and more accurately. The repetitive motion of chewing seems to help the brain tune out distractions. Plus, chewing gum has also been linked to reducing stress and anxiety, which can help calm the mind and make it easier to focus on what actually matters. Here's a tip though, if you're gonna give this a try, go for sugar-free gum to avoid any extra sugar that might cause an energy crash later. So next time you need a quick focus boost, consider grabbing a piece of gum and see how it works for you. There are certainly worse habits. Follow for more simple tips to manage your ADHD and boost your mental health. There's an ADHD hack that I rarely hear anybody talk about. Did you know that chewing...
I remember Carol Vorderman used to speak on this. So when I used to watch GCSE videos, back in the day on VHS, one of the tips she said is while you're writing your exam, chew peppermint chewing gum, and that will help boost your brain power. So it's nothing to do with ADHD. It was just it would have helped you stay focused. And like he said no sugar. So if you can have chewing gum with xylitol, Extra has chewing gum with xylitol. So chewing gum with xylitol, that helps remineralize your teeth. So it's a win-win.
I recommend for anyone with ADHD, whether you're in school or already working. The first one is Unreal AI. If you find yourself overwhelmed by large chunks of information. The first one is Unreal AI. If you find yourself overwhelmed by 3 websites I highly recommend for anyone with ADHD, whether you're in school or already working. The first one is
Unriddle.ai. Okay.
Is Unreal AI. If you find yourself overwhelmed by large chunks of information, whether that's from research papers, from textbooks, you can upload all these different documents in Unreal AI, ask specific questions, and get a summary of all these texts. The next website every ADHDer needs is Goblin Tools. If you constantly feel overwhelmed by your tasks and you don't ask specific questions and get a summary of all these texts. The next website every ADHDer needs is Goblin Tools. If you constantly feel overwhelmed, documents in Unreal AI, ask specific questions, and get a summary of all these texts. The next website every ADHDer needs is Goblin Tools. If you constantly feel overwhelmed,